Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Ginger, and today I'm bringing you guys my February wrap-up. February was a really good reading month for me. I didn't read all the books on my TBR, but I read a lot of 4- and 5-star reads, so I think it evens out, don't you? So before I get into talking about the books themselves, I am going to talk a little bit about the stats and like pages read, average rating, that kind of stuff. And then we'll go ahead and talk about how I felt about all the books I read. So for the total pages I read this month, I read a total of 3,119 pages across 8 books, which I think is awesome. My average rating, like I said, I read a lot of really good books. My average rating was 4.34 stars, so that's almost 4.5 stars. I read 3 arcs this month, so review copies that I received from publishers, and then the different genres I read were 3 romance, because romance readathon, 1 book about grief, 2 thrillers, and 2 fantasy books. Alright, so the first book I had to talk about, I first was like, oh no, I got this from the library, but then I just realized I bought it and the book came 2 days ago, so I actually have it to hold up and show to you guys. And that is The Eye of the World by Robert Jordan, which is the first book in the Wheel of Time series. This follows our main characters Rand, Perrin, and Matt as they discover that they have been chosen by a evil force, and they have some courageous company that comes in and tries to put them on the right path and keep them out of danger. This is a high fantasy adult series that contains 16 books. This is a chunky monkey. There are over 800 pages in here, but I did finish it at the beginning of the month. I read half of it in January and half of it this month, so I'm glad that I got to read all of it, and now it is one of my favorite books of all time. Well, I mean, I have a lot of favorite books, but this got 4.5 stars for me. The only reason it wasn't a full 5 is it was a little slow burn, and so it did take me a while to get through it. But once I finally got through it, I loved it. I had so much to say about it. And this is my boyfriend's favorite book as well, so I'm glad that we both like this book and we can talk about it. I also ordered books 2 and 3 out of the series, so they are on my shelf, and I will be able to continue on with the series soon, or not soon, but I will continue on with it because I really enjoyed this. The next book I read was For Romance Readathon, and unfortunately I don't own this one yet, even though it was a 5 out of 5 stars, one of my favorite romance novels of all time now, and that is Love in Other Words by Christina Lauren. Oh my goodness, this book was wonderful, and if you didn't already go and watch my wrap-up on Romance Readathon, I will leave that linked up here, and you will see me crying a little bit because of this book. This book was so raw and emotional, and just everything that I look for in a romance book. It was realistic, but it had true romantic feelings, and they were treating each other well, and there was some smexy time. It just had everything I wanted. A little bit of tears. I think that Christina Lauren has a very great writing style, and I look forward to reading more books by them, because if they're anything like this one, I'm going to love them and also probably cry. So I'm excited to read more. Then the other book I read, or I guess I read 2 more books for Romance Readathon, but the next book I read for Romance Readathon I just received from buying it as well, so I can show it to you, and that is P.S. I Still Love You by Jenny Han, the second book in the To All the Boys I Loved Before trilogy. I gave this a 5 out of 5 stars. This is kind of like a guilty pleasure read for me. I know there are some problems with this, but tossing those aside, I think that this is just a very cute YA romance, and I will definitely continue on with trilogy because I own the whole thing now, and so I just have to read the last one, and I hope it is as good as the first 2. The only complaint I have is, was John Ambrose really necessary in this book? I don't think so. I'm here for the Peter and Laura Jean, so maybe I'm a little biased, but definitely love this trilogy. Then the last book I read for Romance Readathon was this Lullaby by Sarah Dessen, and this book I gave 4.5 out of 5 stars. This was a really great book. The only thing that I had an issue with was the ending that kind of left me unsatisfied, so that was why it wasn't a complete 5 out of 5 stars. But this follows our main character, Remy, and she kind of has just torn off love from her life because she doesn't believe in it, and then she meets this kid named Dexter, and he kind of makes her think that maybe love could be real. And I just love Sarah Dessen's writing, and I love how she writes very realistic female teenagers, and that is something that I have loved in all of the books I've read by her so far. I have read 3, including this, and I'm going to be reading plenty more Sarah Dessen in the future. I totally just realized I skipped a book that I actually read after The Eye of the World, so I'm going to talk about that now. This book was actually my least favorite of the month, so maybe that's why I forgot about it. But this was a book that I received for a review, and it is Call Me Evie by J.P. Pomare, I think. And this is a thriller surrounding a girl called Kate, but everyone calls her Evie, and we try to figure out why she is where she is. She's with a man that says that it's her uncle, but she knows it's not, and she's trying to figure out what happened and why she's on the run and why she can't be called Kate anymore. And so this is just like a typical thriller. It has a very generic plot and twists and whatnot. The writing style was pretty good. The twists were fine. But I just didn't particularly like it myself. As for a thriller book, I think that it would still appeal to a lot of other people. I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars, maybe 3.5 if I'm being generous, and it was just an okay thriller to me. It does have a blurb from AJ Finn, which is the author of The Woman in the Window, so if you like that, you might like this one. I still think, like I said, that it's worth a read. I just personally didn't think it was that great of a thriller. And then the next arc that I read was In the Blink of an Eye by Jessie Blackadder. I thought this book was a thriller going into it, and I was wrong. And this is a book that is about grief, and it is about a family of 4, and after they lose the youngest of the family, who's a 2-year-old boy named Toby, and kind of how each member of the family is dealing with the loss of this son. One thing that I really liked about this book is that it uses all the points of views. It uses first person, third person, and second person to talk about each character, and I thought that was really unique. And I think this is a very great representation of the different types of grief and how people feel about an accident that happens. And I overall liked it. I think it was a little slow, and this is typically not a book that I would read, so I just didn't overly connect with the characters or anything, so that's why I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. But for what this book is, it definitely is really good, and so if you're looking for a type of book that is kind of hard-hitting and deals with grief, you should definitely pick this one up. This one comes out on March 19th of this year, and I should probably tell you when Call Me Evie comes out as well, because I forgot to do that. Call Me Evie comes out on the 5th of March, so this one comes out sooner. And then I read one of my other 5-star reads of the month, and a book that I'm totally obsessed with now, 6 of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. If you don't already know what this is about, it's about 6 unlikely heroes, I wouldn't call them heroes, but who are asked to go on a heist to steal a secret, and it is just wonderful. And Kaz Brekker is great, and all the characters are great, actually. The writing style, how the characters are portrayed, the plotline in general, all of this was wonderful. I was a little skeptical going into this because I didn't really like the Grisha trilogy, but I've also found out a lot of people who didn't like the Grisha trilogy still loved 6 of Crows, and I'm seeing why, because Leigh Bardugo stepped up her game on this book. And yeah, one of my favorite books of all time, and I'm going to make my boyfriend read this because it was that good. You definitely need to read this if you haven't, because it was great. And then the last book here is my last arc, and that is Runaway by Harlan Coben. This is also a thriller, and it is about a man whose daughter has run away, and he hasn't seen her in a long time, and then he finally tracks her down, and after that happens, shit goes down. There is a murder, and there are suspects that are very close to home, and they still can't find their daughter, Paige. So it's kind of about finding her and figuring out what the heck went on. This book I gave a 3.75 out of 5 stars. I think that it had some great elements. This had a cult in it. There's some cult elements in here, and I found out that's one of my buzzwords because I really like that element of it. But the whole missing person and how everything gets tied together was just a little for me. It was pretty good, and there was just some surprises, but again, this just wasn't a thriller that I particularly loved, so I would still highly recommend this, especially if you've read Harlan Coben before, or if you're interested in missing persons and murders and how everything's tied together, then I'd still suggest giving this a try. Like I said, just wasn't one of my favorites, but it was almost 4 out of 5 stars, so that's still pretty good in my book. And this one comes out on the 19th of March as well, so the same time as In the Blink of an Eye. And then real quickly, even though those were all the books that I actually read, I did start Crooked Kingdom this month, but I don't think I'm gonna finish by the end. I am almost halfway through. This is also great. I love the sprayed edges. This is a library copy, and I'm going to buy a copy for myself, but I just had to continue on with the duology because I did not want to leave my characters, so I just wanted to briefly mention this. I don't have full thoughts on it yet, but I am making my way through it. So you will see that in my March wrap-up because it's great. So these are all the books that I read. Oh, these are all the books that I read in February. And as you can see, I read a lot of really good books, and I'm just so happy that I got to do that because they were all so good. And I have a very, very big TBR for March. So if you're interested in finding out about that, wait for my TBR video that will be coming up in a few days. And let me know in the comments below if you've read any of these books and also love them, or if you hated them, or what did you read in February? I'm excited to know. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up and make sure to subscribe. And I look forward to seeing you all in my next videos. Bye! Hi friends, Ginger here. Welcome back to my channel, and if you're new, hi, how are ya? Today I'm bringing you guys my January